Ever since Call of Duty reached the mainstream and became the juggernaut that it is, it's been the goal of many other competing developers to take it down or kill Call of Duty. And throughout history, we've seen a lot of games that have been dubbed the Call of Duty killer. A lot have come through, all of them have failed. Today I want to talk about a few of the standouts in history that really gave Call of Duty a run for its money. We'll talk a little bit about what those games did right, what those games did wrong, and what ended up happening to them. Now, there are a handful of games back in 2010 and 2011 that people were really trying to push as the Call of Duty killers, and obviously, spoiler alert, none of the games we're talking about today actually succeeded in this task, but there's a few that were standouts that were actually really, really good games, and although they were extremely successful, they didn't really take Call of Duty down, obviously. I'm going to bundle two of them together a little bit, but we'll talk about them individually as well, that being Battlefield Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3. Starting with Bad Company 2, this was the sequel to the console-exclusive Battlefield Bad Company, and they improved on many areas of the game, from graphical to gameplay improvements to just the overall polish of the game, as well as this being the sequel to Bad Company 1, which was a reasonable success on consoles. It was also the first time that the Bad Company game sub-series, if you will, had also hit PC and console at the same time. Obviously, reaching a broader audience is a good thing, especially for a game franchise that really had its roots planted heavily in the PC side. So having Bad Company 1 on its own as a standalone console release was kind of a silly thing, but I think overall ended up being a good thing because Battlefield Bad Company 2 ended up being a phenomenal Battlefield experience. Granted, they did stray away from a few things that were a bit traditional for Battlefield games, like the removal of jets. I don't believe there was a prone position in the game at all, and they also removed the commander mode for this game as well. But at the same time, when you're trying to reach a more console-based Call of Duty-obsessed demographic, it actually worked quite well. And although the game was both a critical and financial success, it didn't really hold a candle to that year's Call of Duty release, seeing as Bad Company only sold 9 million copies, where Black Ops 1 sold approximately 31 million copies. Jumping forward another year, we see the release of Battlefield 3. Now, this game had an absolute massive marketing push, and a lot of people were truly convinced that this game was going to be the one that finally took down Call of Duty. And Battlefield 3 was a phenomenal experience. From top to bottom, the game was absolutely excellent. Going back to its Battlefield roots, not only having land vehicle combat, but including helicopter and jets once again, with tight infantry controls, a ton of weapon selections, and just an overall phenomenal gameplay experience from top to bottom. Battlefield 3 was an absolute smash success, selling over 15 million copies. And although Battlefield 3 was an absolute banger of a game, it unfortunately did not kill Call of Duty. Comparing Battlefield 3's sales numbers to the Call of Duty that was released that year, being Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, like I said, Battlefield had sold approximately 15 million copies, where Modern Warfare 3 doubled that and sold over 30 million copies. Now, did Battlefield Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3 really have a shot at taking down Call of Duty? Absolutely not. At this time, 2010, 2011, Call of Duty was in its golden era. They could do no wrong in the eyes of the player, and they were only getting better and better. So did Battlefield really have a chance at taking Call of Duty down at this time? No, it definitely didn't. But they did take away a lot of players for a good amount of time during these games' release. Specifically, myself, I played a ton more Battlefield 3 than I did Modern Warfare 3 during that Call of Duty's life cycle. Granted, I did go back and play Modern Warfare 3 after its term, but during these games' prime, I actually chose Battlefield 3 over Modern Warfare 3. And I know I'm not the only Call of Duty player out there that did such a thing. Seems like treason back in those Call of Duty golden age, but I regret nothing. Battlefield 3 was awesome. Fast forward a few years, and we have some buzz. It's 2014, a game being developed by Respawn Entertainment titled Titanfall. Now, there was some hype around this game. There was some buzz because there was ex-Call of Duty developers that were not only working on the game, but many other players who had played early builds of Titanfall had given their stamp of approval that this could finally be the game to take Call of Duty down. And Titanfall was an absolutely awesome game. It had mechs, it had wall running, super fast-paced, high-octane action FPS gameplay. The game was awesome. However, it felt a little bit shallow to many of us, and it didn't have the longevity that a lot of us wanted out of a game like this. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay itself was awesome. I never thought I'd be able to play as a mech and feel like I have so much movement and control, better than any other game has done it up until this point. The infantry combat was excellent, the gunplay was excellent, the wall running and overall movement was some of the best we had ever seen in the FPS genre at this time. And just when you think they have everything that could possibly be working in their favor right in front of them, Call of Duty also takes a leap into the future, and they release Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the first ever futuristic, boots off the ground Call of Duty to be released. It was a little bit of a controversial one at the time, but it was a Call of Duty. It was something new, something fresh, took place in the future. We had these awesome jetpacks that we could do these double jumps and exciting movements left, right, back, forward, slams on the ground, just all kinds of crazy things, and it was new for Call of Duty players, and many of us flocked to it. I think this overall shock and the fact that it was just something completely new and fresh for the Call of Duty franchise took away a lot of attention that Titanfall would have otherwise gotten. Titanfall 1 was a really good game, and it laid a great foundation for its successor, Titanfall 2, and eventually Apex Legends. But unfortunately, Titanfall was lacking in a few areas. Like I said, in terms of options, it was a little bit slim, the maps were a bit repetitive in my personal opinion, and the biggest thing that I felt like they left out was the lack of a campaign mode. It was strictly multiplayer, online only, multiplayer arena type combat, and I think that was a big missed opportunity for Respawn Entertainment to focus solely on the multiplayer aspect of this game when they were building a world and a franchise that had so much creativity in its aesthetic that they could have built a really awesome single-player campaign option for many players who don't enjoy the multiplayer aspect of the game or simply want to take a break from the multiplayer aspect of the game. It gives them the option, it gives them the choice to enjoy a single-player experience. Fortunately, Respawn Entertainment did learn that lesson, and with Titanfall 2, they improved in pretty much every single area and included a single-player story mode, which is excellent, by the way. Now, unfortunately for Titanfall 1, although it was a success in terms of the financial aspect and overall player opinion on the game, and even critical opinion at that, it did sell about 10 million units. Unfortunately, like I said, there was a bit of a buzz around Advanced Warfare with a lot of players, and although they did see a dip in the sales numbers for Advanced Warfare, it was still a bigger game than Titanfall by nearly doubling its total sales numbers. Whereas Titanfall sold about 10 million copies, Advanced Warfare had sold almost 22 million copies. Titanfall 1 was a really good game, but unfortunately it just didn't have quite enough of that special something to take away Call of Duty players forever. Just like Battlefield 3 and Bad Company 2, a lot of players, including myself, did give Titanfall 1 a try, but unfortunately it didn't really keep us long enough to be able to abandon Call of Duty forever. Now, I am going to take a little bit of a leap in terms of time here. We're going to jump forward 10 years. Now, I know there's been some other Call of Duty killers, quote-unquote, of the past that I could cover, but I'll leave that for another day or another creator to cover because there's so many games that people have dubbed the Call of Duty killer, from games like Homefront and Brink, Crysis 2, even Lawbreakers. There's so many games that have come out through history that have been dubbed the Call of Duty killer, but I feel like the games that we have talked about today so far had the best shot at that time. Now that leads us to the most recent quote-unquote Call of Duty killer, a game that had a lot of excitement around it, a lot of buzz, and a lot of players, including myself, put a fair amount of time into it. But unfortunately, the support was not there from the publishers, and the developers had to sunset their game, that being X-Defiant. X-Defiant was a game that I was absurdly excited for. It was a return-to-form, arcade, arena, team-based shooter, and a game that, when you played it, felt like it was transporting you back to, like, 2012. It had a lot of things going for it. The gunplay was tight and satisfying. The maps were some of the best arena shooter maps that I've seen in recent history. But unfortunately, there were many things that kind of held X-Defiant back. In my opinion, the biggest thing that held X-Defiant back was its lack of progression options. I think a lot of us who played X Defiant were kind of expecting more of a Call of Duty clone in the progression and unlock system, from camos to attachment options and customization options in terms of the weapons aesthetics, like clan tags and emblems, that kind of thing. I think a lot of us were expecting that type of stuff to be included in the game from the get-go. That would give us a reason to want to play every single day or play frequently to grind towards those new unlocks. But sadly, there just wasn't many of those options. The game really just had like 3 or 4 base camos that you could work for, and it was kind of dependent on the weapon's level. From bronze, silver, and gold, I believe it was, and unfortunately, pretty much all the other interesting camos or player skins were from the cash shop only. You had to buy them. So again, it felt empty. You couldn't actually work towards unlocking those things naturally throughout the game. You had to just whip out the credit card and buy the camo, and that's not rewarding. Is it cool for a second to have a new fancy skin on your specialist or gun? I mean, sure, but it doesn't really give you the satisfaction of playing consistently, watching that XP level go up and up and up until eventually you reach the mountaintop and you get that awesome, cool new camo. The progression system just felt hollow for a lot of us. It felt more of like a Counter-Strike experience where it was just a lot of repetitive matches, but a lot of us Call of Duty players who were coming to this game expecting a little bit more of that something were left a little bit dissatisfied. Unfortunately, this kind of hollow experience was really not at the fault of the Ubisoft devs. It was from the Ubisoft executives or publishers, whatever you want to call them, where they kind of pushed them in a direction of releasing the game in a state that was a bit incomplete, if you ask me, and pretty much any other player. It felt incomplete, and you could really see that with the gameplay experience. The gunplay and the maps were awesome, but we didn't really have a good reason to play consistently or to stick around. And rather than Ubisoft give the devs enough time to get the game to a state where a lot of players would actually want to play consistently, they just pulled the plug on them and they said, sorry, you're losing us money. Kill the thing. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that X Defiant's only reason for not succeeding was its kind of hollow progression system. There were other issues with the game as well. The absolute biggest problem with X Defiant, and one that frustrated a lot of players, including myself, and caused a lot of players, including myself, to abandon the game for a time, was its absolutely busted hit registration and netcode issues. I can't tell you how many times when I was playing X Defiant that I was running around a corner away from an enemy, and whenever I thought I was more than clear, more than far away enough from an enemy, I would still die around the corner. It was an absolutely frustrating, infuriating experience because it felt like you had no control as to when you could actually live or die, even whenever on your screen you were very much so safe, but on your enemy's screen, your butt was still hanging around the corner and is an easy target. That kind of inconsistency drove a lot of players away, and unfortunately the X Defiant devs never got it fixed whenever it was still live. This was a game that had so much promise. It could have been the best free-to-play arena shooter that we've ever seen if they were given enough time and given enough tools to get it to the state that it needed to be in to succeed. But unfortunately, this is Ubisoft we're talking about. And they pulled the plug. The game is completely dead. It is unplayable. There is no way to play X Defiant at this time, to my knowledge. And it's a very sad thing because it really had the formula to bring a lot of players who had left Call of Duty, or wanted to leave Call of Duty for that matter. It had a lot of the things that us players wanted, but sadly it never got to the state that really was good enough to take down Call of Duty for good. In summary, there's been many Call of Duty killers throughout history, but unfortunately there's only one game that could kill Call of Duty for good, and for many of us, the answer is obvious. It's right in front of us. We know what that one game is, and it's Call of Duty itself. And sadly, we're kind of seeing it happen in real time right before our eyes. The polish and care that Call of Duty had way back in its golden age is simply gone. It's completely eradicated from development. There's no heart, there's no soul. It's just a franchise, really just the name of the franchise, carrying the sales. It's the bundles and the crossovers that are continuing to make Activision money. And sadly, the Call of Duty of today is not the Call of Duty that many of us loved, but the Call of Duty today is the true Call of Duty killer. If you want to hear a little bit more about some other Call of Duty killers or actually see some gameplay for those games, go check out T-Dog Smitty's video where he played a ton of Call of Duty killers so that you don't have to. Shout out T-Dog. Bye now.